I gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
That. Let's talk about that.
You need this. Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy. Remarkable.
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of H20 Studios. This is Remarkable. This week, we're talking marketing lessons from the documentary Animal with the help of our special guest, producer at H20 Studios, Kevin Carter. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good. What's up, Ian?
Great to have you on the show. Super excited to dig into the art of the documentary, how you're building it. You also worked in marketing, movie marketing at Lionsgate, so we're going to dig all into that. But first, tell us about your documentary Animal.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on here. Very excited for this show. So our documentary Animal is an examination of meat in the way that it's been kind of demonized over the last 70, 80 plus years, and whether or not that has led to more health or harm within our society. For me, I've had a long background in health and fitness in the sense of I played sports my whole life, and then I was in the military for years. And so it was always like front and center. So to me, like, I think I had a higher baseline understanding of what health is than probably your average person, or at least that's what I thought. And then about a year and a half ago, one of my co-producers just started telling me about the carnivore diet. And it actually started, we were doing a podcast actually, and we had a guest on. And then afterwards, the guest was asking me, what shake I have in the morning or what I do for breakfast. And I told him that I have like this spinach smoothie with berries and all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. And then he asked me a question that no one had ever asked me before that just kind of completely threw me off, where he was like, why do you put spinach in your smoothie? And I just stood there and I was like, what is this guy talking about? You put it because of muscles, because of Popeyes. What are you talking about? Everyone knows you eat a thing of spinach and you get Popeye muscles. Like, we've told this our whole lives. But like, he was just like, anything that you think you get from spinach, you can get from meat, and more of it and better of it. And, at that point, like I couldn't even refute what he was saying because I didn't even know why the heck I was eating spinach. And to me, that was like a light bulb moment of like, okay, I at least need to look into this. Like, he could be totally full of crap, but like, I need to at least look into this and see if there's any truth to what he's talking about. And that just kind of led me down the path to, I watched my co-producer go carnivore and watch how it worked for him. And then I started to just learn more and more about it. And then we had this opportunity to make this documentary and bring in these incredible voices within the carnivore health meat space that are not just influencers. Some of them are, influencers, but have their own personal stories of how it helped them. But most of them are actually doctors that have patients that have been treating these conditions with meat-based diets, essentially. And of course, other interventions for decades and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands overall between all of them. And I didn't know this community even existed. So as we kind of went deeper into that, I just kept falling deeper and deeper into this project. And then, that's kind of where we are now. And that's kind of the genesis of Animal and the beginnings of our film.
Amazing. And it comes out in June. Where can people watch it?
So the film is coming out June 20th. It'll be in select theaters and on digital everywhere you can buy and rent movies. The select cities are still being ironed out, but it's going to be like LA, New York, likely Austin, potentially Houston, Dallas, and Vegas are the other options. So we'll socialize that out when they all get finalized. But right now, LA, New York is 100%, and then everywhere on digital, June 20th.
Amazing. So for our listeners, you're about to hear the making of, and so definitely seeing the final product. I'm really excited. This is something I'm passionate about, and we'll get more into the doc stuff here. But I think it's just any time in life where you get asked a question, you go, I don't know. We've always done it that way. It does take you, to take a step back.
Exactly. And, a lot of my life, I was like hard-headed, So I was like, it was kind of like a fork in the road moment. It's like, I can continue to be hard-headed and just not listen to this, or at least look into it. And I thought that was actually like a big moment for me as I become a man in life and, just more mature of just being like, okay, there's a reason this conversation came to me, and it's okay. Let me evaluate this. And upon evaluation, just found out that there's so many untruths that we think are truths within our health system and the way that we eat. And it's really shocking because for me, I just trust doctors. Like I just have love and respect for them and appreciate what they do. And I still think they have the best at heart. It's just, I think they're misguided and looking at the wrong things. And I'm happy to get more into that. I don't know how deep we want to go. I can get pretty nerdy on the science now, but it's fundamentally, I think they're trying to do the right thing. I just think they're looking at the wrong things. And I think they're taught the wrong things in school. And then some things in school, like nutrition, they're just not taught at all. And that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, well, that's us. My wife's a physical therapist, and if you go to a doctor versus you go to a physical therapist, right? If you go to a doctor and you say my toe hurts, I've told this story, I think maybe on this podcast before, but I had a friend who was treating someone. This person is a physical therapist, and they were treating a pitcher, and the pitcher had elbow pain. And if you go to the doctor, the person went to the doctor and said, I got elbow pain. Hey, ice, Advil. And so now I still have this elbow pain. Kept going to the doctor. Nothing happened. And then they started going to the physical therapist to help for this elbow pain. And basically is something wrong with their elbow? Is there something wrong with the way that something they're doing? They're sleeping on it wrong, and they sort of went from the elbow outward until they realized, like, has anything else happened to you recently? Oh man, yeah, no, I broke my toe, like sliding into, home plate the other day. And it's like, oh, which toe is it? It's my left foot. It's like for a pitcher, that's his plant foot. And so what actually happened was he was short arming it changed the way that he was pitching. So it was putting way more pressure on his elbow, and his elbow was hurting because of his toe. And it's like just going to the doctor where they're going to diagnose just the pain of the elbow. And not that all doctors would do that, or that this doctor or whatever, but the idea of looking from a physical therapy standpoint, like looking at the mechanism of the injury and what is, the root cause of this thing, rather than just treating, the symptom. And I think that, and I know this is something that, you're going to get into in your film of what we put into our body is super important, and it affects the outcomes there. But I think it's an important thing to look at, like, holistically, like what is the person who's trying to solve your healthcare needs? What are they trying to do, and why are they trying to do it, versus sort of looking at it as a big picture thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's put a pin in animal. We'll come back to that because I want to know how this got made and how you think about marketing it. But before this, you were working for Lionsgate. You spearheaded a ton of marketing campaigns, over 117 film and television releases, 100 million plus in revenue. Take us back, like, how do movies and films and television releases, how do they get marketed?
Yeah, so where I started at Lionsgate was really in the indie world. So I was working as a brand marketer. So basically, a lot of studios kind of operate as almost like an arms dealer for like media, where you'll have a company that'll produce the content and then they'll get a distributor and then, they get it out into the world. So I was doing that for a lot of indie brands. So some of the brands that I was working with at that time was A24, Vertical Entertainment, Saban, Roadside Attractions, Indican Pictures. And then we also had a specialty Lionsgate brand that's kind of similar to like Focus Features at Universal or Fox Searchlight at Fox, kind of like that world. And then we would release one-off films kind of like as an indie specialty within Lionsgate. So that's kind of like the realm of where I worked in. And the way that you market movies is really just a hype engine. You just build awareness well in advance of a film. Going to speak in generalizations here. It's changed quite a bit. Pre-COVID was a certain way. Now, then during COVID is obviously a completely different way. And then now it's like a kind of a blended mix, and it's changing all the time. So this is super generalization, but on a mid-tier movie, you would start marketing these out like 3 months or so, and kind of drop the trailer, drop the key art, drop official photos, and then really just trying to build as much awareness as possible so that people can set up appointment television to go see the film in theaters. And then when it starts at theaters, it goes through different what's called windows. So the first window is the theatrical window. That's almost always the highest revenue generating window of movies because it has the highest price point per unit, so per person. I mean, everyone here has gone to movies before. Just think about it. You've spent $15, $20. Now it didn't used to be that expensive per ticket per person. And then imagine if you were just renting at home, you just rent $4.99 for, newer film. And that's, multiple people can see that. So it's a higher price points window that then would lead into home entertainment, and home entertainment would encompass what's transactional. So that's like buy or rent movies. And then after that, you'll see it in subscription or subscriber video on demand. That's like your Netflixes, your Hulus. And then past that is TV, essentially. So that's kind of like the movie marketing life cycle. And yeah, I mean, it's the only marketing I've ever really done. So I don't really know how to compare it to other types of marketing, but it's really fun. It's incredibly dynamic. Every campaign is different. We can talk about a little bit how I think studios get a little bit stuck in their ways on campaigns and just kind of like doing the same thing. We can definitely chat kind of about that. But like overall, each campaign from like a creative sense is treated, very uniquely because each film is unique, right? So yeah, that's kind of a high level on movie marketing.
Yeah. Would you say, let's get into what works, what doesn't work. Or were there things that you noticed, and I don't know if you have any examples of the films, but what's working when it comes to marketing films?
What's working? That is a very open question. Virality, like anything else, Yeah. I think if you can just catch the zeitgeist and the right timing, like that's just like that's the way to just take your movie from like 7 to 1,000. And I'll give you a perfect example lately is Sinners. Like that movie was on like really no one's radar, besides it being a Ryan Coogler film and Michael B. Jordan, and they've made good projects together in the past, which means something for sure. I'm in this world every day. I read about it. Like Sinners was not even in like a tier 1, tier 2 list. It was kind of the first I even really was hearing about is when I was seeing billboards about it in LA. And I think what they were able to tap into was the human nature of creating the film and Ryan Coogler's excitement of shooting it in IMAX in a very unique way that you don't typically see from films, like where they keep it very corporate-y and salesy. With Sinners, they kind of, I think, showed more interesting behind the scenes of the creation of the film. And I think it just took fire. And on top of it is just a really good film and reviewed very well, but there's tons of films that review well and don't do anything. So I think it just hit the zeitgeist and hit the interest in film fans. It had the lowest second week drop for an R-rated film, I think, in history. It was either number 1 or number 2. Like the first week it made 47 million or something. And then the second week it made like 40 million, which is like absolutely insane. You don't have to know anything about movies. And let me just tell you, that is nuts. Like normally you'll see like a 50% drop. So like first week makes 40, second week will make 20 at theatrical. So it just shows that word of mouth. There's so many people that were like, you got to go see this film. So I think it's really like hitting that virality and what really drives that virality is word of mouth. So if you can get people to evangelize your film, to take your film and make it their champion, to just tell everyone around them about it, I think that's the best way for a film to be successful because that's all earned media. You're not paying for any of that. Every time someone says, like even me saying this right now, Warner Brothers did not pay me to say anything like this, but if anyone is listening to this and they haven't seen Sinners, maybe they'll actually go purchase it now, and then that's all free media that they got. So I think that's incredibly valuable, and that's certainly something that we're trying to do with Animal too, is really create evangelists for the film because we have a very tight budget. And we can't hit everyone that we want to, but if we hit the right people and then those people evangelize to tangentially connected audiences, then that's how films can truly fly.
Yeah, I mean, also Sinners, I think last I checked, Rotten Tomatoes was 100%. So making it great.
Very high.
Yeah, making a great film. But like you said, lots don't escape. Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about, I've never worked at, a studio and marketed films. But from my understanding from talking to people behind the scenes is, there's just a lot of black box when it comes to how they're investing in different channels because each thing is its own unique entity. Like literally it's its own unique company. Like films are their own like
literally
companies. So they're marketed almost from scratch. I mean, they basically are every single time, which is challenging, right? Whereas if you're a B2B marketer, like you're marketing, whatever, Asana all day, every day, right? So you have just much more data and things there. You're having to do the same thing. And there's a lot of focus on things like, demos and hitting quadrants of the film and leveraging mass media that we've been using for a long time and to sort of hit a bunch of people at the same time and things like that. But a lot of that it seems a little bit rinse and repeat. Is that true? I don't know.
Yeah, that's very true. In my experience, I was kind of shocked. And again, it's the only experience I have in the industry, so I have no idea if everyone's doing this or what. I don't think it's necessarily right, but also at the same time, I understand why people do it, and I can kind of talk about that too. So much of spend, at least at like the level that I was working at first with all the indie films, is just templated. It's just, I literally worked in these spreadsheets where it's, okay, here's the budget of the film, here's the, percentage that we're going to put in paid media off of this budget, and it's just boom, boom. And then that's the decision. And I think there's a lot more nuance to titles than that. And as I said, I don't want to say it's necessarily the wrong thing for a couple of reasons. One, that was a high volume business that I was working in with the indie world. Not all indie films that I was working on even got a spend really, but like the major ones, like, it was a higher volume than like wide theatricals for sure. A wide theatrical in most major studios might have 5 to 15 a year or so. And indie business would definitely have more than that. That would have a media spend behind it. The most films I ever released in a month was probably like 18 or something, but not every single one of those had a paid media spend. Some of those were just getting the art together, getting them up on platform, et cetera. But probably, 20 to 30% of them actually had some true marketing behind it. Small marketing, but some type of marketing. There's also this aversion to risk within the industry. And I think that is a big issue. And it's kind of led us to where we are today, where we just get remakes and reboots and templated spends and all that. And I do want to be fair, though, without just criticizing it. I do want to be fair. You have to imagine you're a executive that's been working in the studio system for 15, 20 years. You finally get that SVP role. You finally get that EVP role. You're like, all right, I've been grinding for this forever. I'm getting paid. Like, working at a studio. This is awesome. Maybe you have a convertible. You drive down the PCH. You're just loving life. And then you have two options. It's like, okay, do I use this templated spend calculator that we use on films that is like probably solid, that we're good to go, may limit our upside, but also limits our downside risk? Or do I take a chance and, try something new and fresh and try to break through all the noise that's out there, but the downside risk is a bit higher? And most of the time they pick the latter, right? Most of the time they're like, I'm going to take the templated Excel spreadsheet that just spits out a number. And I get it. And I think the same decision actually happens with picking films too. That's why you get so many reboots, get so many remakes. Like I think one of the worst things that has actually happened to studios is them becoming public. Because when you're beholden to so many shareholders, like the bottom line is viewed a bit differently than when it's privately held. Like Animal Art Company is privately held. There's only a few stakeholders. Like we can be very that agile and make decisions. And of course, we care about making money 100%, but we're not beholden to tens of thousands of shareholders where we can have a shareholder revolt and even get like our CEO removed or anything. Like we have nothing like that. We just want to make great content. I think you get stuck in just making scared content all the time versus making like the best content. I think that's kind of where our industry is, where it's unfortunate, but I think you're really starting to see a lot of people get tired of that. More and more people are talking about it. There's studies that I saw recently, like large scale studies that were saying that people want to see like more romantic comedies in theaters and everything, which you would never have any idea because they all go straight to streaming right now. But studios are too afraid to make them and put them into theaters. And going back to Sinners as an example too, that's an independent movie. That's a totally unique, not independent movie, a new IP. Like it's not based off of anything. And just look how people showed up. They were like, so if you just make something amazing, like and really cool and interesting, people will show up. So I think we just need to have more risk takers. And like I said, I get it. People have families, like, and it's all that. And I've literally seen people take risks on films and then get fired before and lay off, respectfully let go. So I get the risk, but at the same time, like I think people want it, and you can't really have incredible upside if you're not taking incredible chances, calculated chances too. So
I got a list for you really quick. This is the top financially successful independent films of all time. You ready?
Yeah.
Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson, 2004, worldwide gross $611 million on a budget of production plus marketing of about 45.
Wow, that's nuts. Wow.
Yeah. The Intouchables, 15 turned into 484, 2011. Dances with Wolves, 1990, 22 plus 10, 32 turned into 424. King's Speech, 2010, 30 million turned into 424. My Big Fat Greek Wedding, 2002. American Beauty, 7, Silence of the Lambs, Parasite, Sound of Freedom, Blair Witch Project, Silver Linings Playbook, Fahrenheit 9/11, Good Will Hunting, Pulp Fiction, Everything Everywhere All at Once, 2022. But Nora just did on $6 million budget, $18 million, and marketing did $40 million. So, I mean, it's not done yet, but maybe it is now. But so they did 22 on 40. Anything you notice in there? All completely original ideas and original films that are all, no kidding, they're all really good, but all super weird, super different. And yeah, it's if you want to look at how independent films become a hit, like Sinners. Sinners isn't a true independent, but it's an original idea, like you said. But it's not like far off from an independent sort of, directionally either.
I thought your number one, and maybe this wasn't considered independent, but I know it started out independent, is Paranormal Activity.
Oh, yeah. Was that? That's a great question. Yeah.
Even if it was acquired, it still started as independent. And when it was first releasing, I doubt a studio had touched it, but I mean, they made that movie for like $50K or something, and it's the highest margin movie of all time.
Maybe this list just didn't count that for some reason, because like you said, studio. Anyways, the idea, but it's the same sort of thing. Yeah. Oh, it was shot for $15,000. Paranormal Activity. Budget $15,000 USD. Incredible. But yeah, I mean, I think that part of this is like, yes, the lesson here, like you have to make something great. You have to make something original. Like, I think that's like part of it. And in order to have a sequel, you got to make something great, to begin with. And I think, there's a lesson here about creating on constraints and all that. And we're going to get into that as you talked about making Animal. But I think, the other thing here is that marketing can't be drag and drop. It can't be. You cannot market the same way. You absolutely can't. The thing that I think is wrong from what I've heard, because I'm not an industry insider, is I think the concept of demos are like wildly incorrect. Like there's these demos, like 18 to 35. Dude, like I'm 38. I don't do a single thing that's like an 18-year-old. There's not a single thing in my entire life that I do that's like a 18-year-old or like a 22-year-old or whatever, unless it's go to a movie that's really good. But, I don't consider myself like necessarily a genre person. I don't consider myself whatever. And I think that we sometimes bucket people in the way that's convenient for us rather than bucketing people in the way that they actually view themselves, or that they don't even view themselves that way, but they would go see it. Like, how many people were not sci-fi fans before Star Wars came about? You know what I mean? So I think that sort of stuff, or people that wouldn't consider themselves horror fans that just went and saw Sinners. Is that a horror movie? Or like Get Out as another example. Like, is that a horror film? Did it get people that were, so anyways, I think there's just so much nuance to this stuff, and drag and drop just couldn't possibly be an effective strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I'm also not a horror fan at all. And like, that's part of the reason why I didn't go see Sinners at first. But then someone did confirm for me that it's not actually scary. So that made me feel better about going. But I mean, 100%, man, you're so right. So that's actually when I first went into the studios and was like doing marketing, and it was right after I got my master's. So like I learned about like target audience and everything, but like actually implementing it in a business was kind of different. So it's like when I went over there, all of those demographics, as you said, are also like 100% templated. So they would be 18 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, and then 45 to 54. And I was just sitting there, I was like, who came up with these? Like, why do we use these? Like, yeah, and we needed to use something, so I get it. And we also use psychographics, so it wasn't just demographics. And then for anyone on the call, if you don't know what that is, it's like interest. Psychographics is just interest, and then obviously demographics is just, age, gender, all that stuff. So there is like some importance to that kind of stuff. But you're totally right. Like, I'm 34. Like, I don't live the same life as a 24-year-old. And I definitely live my life more based around my interest. So that's so funny you say that, because I actually remember sitting there looking at these demographics like templated for every film at that time. And I was like, why is it broken? Who made this decision that like 18 to 24, these are the same type of people? And then 25 to 34, these are the same type of people. Like, who made this decision? And it's just across the industry. And actually, I know it's not just that way at Lionsgate, because the way that we would get our data from data analytics agencies was presented to us that way. So I know that they were presenting it up to all the other studios that way as well.
Yeah. The other thing that jumped out to me that you were talking about that I've heard also behind the scenes is you said every film doesn't have a marketing budget. And like, this is something that's super common in B2B marketing or other types of marketing, that people create content and then don't have a budget to promote it. And this is something that like I've been talking about since it started Caspian, since before Caspian. If you make it, you have to have a marketing budget to promote it. Like, you have to. And so the idea of, I personally would never make anything that doesn't have a marketing budget. I never have, and I never will, because it makes no sense, because the name of the game is distribution. No matter how good it is, it's like, if you think it's so good that it'll do good without marketing, could you imagine how much better it would do with marketing?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's, oh no, this is so good that people are they're gonna love it so much that it's gonna spread virally. You know what would accelerate that a whole lot? If you're saying that that's true, if one person sees it and it's so good that they're going to tell 10 people that the virality is so good, why don't we market this to, lots of people so that they go tell 10 people?
100%. Yeah. And someone may respond to that as saying like, well, like an ad's not the same thing as like watching a movie. And it's like, well, you can do screenings. You can do word of mouth screenings across the US. That's another way to do it too. I worked on a film with Kevin Smith, the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. He did like 30 to 50 screenings across the US with his fans for that film. And the film ended up being very financially successful, even though he did all those screenings. Now, I think there's some nuance with like how big a brand is and all that. Cause like, he could screen it that much and people would still pay for it because it's such a big brand. But, that was marketing, and we probably spent more on that word of mouth campaign, or actually, I think he actually paid for it. But the dollar value of the word of mouth campaign there was actually probably more than what we spent on the marketing overall. They're like relatively close. So, if the argument is like, oh, well, people need to see it, and then they'll tell someone, it's like, well, do word of mouth screenings then.
Yeah. All right, let's get into Animal. Meredith, what questions you got for us?
Yeah. A couple of things.
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
First, like, Kevin, I know you brought up that there's a crazy aversion to risk in the industry, but I was wondering, like, what would you advocate for if that didn't exist when it comes to marketing?
And that's why I wanted to clarify that I do understand why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's a clear answer. Because it's, what do we say? Like, you have to allow your executives to have 3 strikeouts before a win or something, because they're down to try somewhere. I think that actually is how it should work. I think we should have more lateral limitations given to executives to try and play, basically. Like, you look at Google, like Gmail would have never been created if they didn't have dedicated work time that was encouraged by the executive team, right? So it's kind of like the same idea. Allow them to play a little bit, just try some crazy things that might cause some virality, really. Because as I was saying earlier, like, I think the best way is when you really create an army of people that just talk about your film without you doing anything. Like every one person that you market to that loves it and then tells 3 other people, like, there's so much value to that. And then you just expand that out further to like thousands of people, and then they're all sharing with other people. Like there's literally like, that is like the winning formula, really. So you have to try things that don't just inform people, but make them want to talk about it. And I think the best way to do that is just encourage executives to try different things without fear of like losing their jobs, basically. But that's really hard to do. But in the industry, that happens quite a bit. There's tons of layoffs all the time. There's reductions in forces that happens all the time. And I think part of that too is you have these slates of films, and a slate is just like a group of films that come out. And let's say your studio has a great year, a great slate, and kills it. They got to plus up the team to put all that out. But then next year they have a light slate, then they have to cut people. And it's just kind of like a wave in entertainment. And I think a lot of the major companies are stuck a little bit because they have these massive overhead costs, like the cost of the backlot, like the light, water, electricity. That's all goes into the types of movies and the scale of movies that they need to make just to keep their literal physical footprint paid for, that makes it very difficult to work within that realm and take some chances. But I think the market is ready for more chances. I mean, it only got here in the first place because of tons of chances. And I think it's a risk at becoming stale and then losing eyeballs to video games and other types of entertainment and experiential entertainment that is I think is a real risk. And then also when you move AI into all of it, and it's like I think a lot of AI content feels very stale and similar because it's all derivative of other human content. None of it is actually truly new. I think like it's kind of like a perfect recipe of disaster if we don't actually allow for more creativity to shine through. And we keep using this example just because it's recent, but like Sinners.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, one of the things that we talk about on this show and I've talked about on my other marketing show is like that a marketer, CMO comes in with a strategy that they build for that specific business, and then they dust off their playbook, and sort of the less well-performing CMOs will just take the playbook from their old job and drop it onto their new job. Because inherently, like, there's just too many differences from company to company to necessarily do that. Now, you can take plays, you can tweak plays, you can say, this is working. But I mean, just using the same plays from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they have to be tweaked, they have to be edited, they have to be adjusted. Marketing is changing so incredibly fast every day that to use like, hey, we're going to have the star of the show go on, the late night circuit. Well, it's like, if you're in the business of getting people's to put their butt into a movie ticket and to buy the popcorn and to sit with their partner or their friend or whatever, you better hope that the audience that watches Jimmy Kimmel goes to movie, because that's the business that you're in. And I remember I saw Cocaine Bear because my brother was like, dude, we got to go see this movie because it sounds ridiculous. And we just wanted to go watch something stupid. And that happens because it was just dumb enough to get us to go to the theater. Right. And we're just dumb enough to do it. And I think that that is such a great use case for this of like, is this worth your Saturday night? And the answer is like, it was awesome. And I remember it. And like, it's the business. The business is having a great Saturday night or Friday night or Tuesday afternoon or whatever it is. That's the business that they're in. That's what you need to focus on. That's the only thing that matters at the beginning for the onset. Because like you said, those $15 tickets that add up. I think it's like, anytime you're rolling out any type of, the old way works or whatever way works, you just have to constantly reassess. And that probably needs to happen for every film, unfortunately. That's the hard part. That's the work.
100%. And, I was saying that AI can make creative stale. I think it's incredibly helpful with brainstorming ways to be different as well. I use AI every day. So let me be clear, I love it. I mean, I was literally right before I started this podcast, I was using it to do some deep research for me on the side on something. And as a brainstorming partner, it's incredibly valuable to just look at things a little bit differently. And you can train these models so that they're very, very helpful. So I think it is vitally important that we try different things and that every campaign has nuance to it. And we're not just templating spend. Like I can tell you for Animal, there's been no templated spend at all. And it's just kind of totally bespoke campaign. And if we were to do another film after this, it would not be the same campaign. Because you have to look at each campaign. It's like, okay, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? And it's like, okay, let's highlight our strengths and let's hide our weaknesses. And then, lean into your strengths and hopefully that carries you to the promised land. So if you just do every single film the same way, some films it'll work, some films it won't work. And it's just, you're kind of shooting blind out of fear, really.
What was the hardest part about making the documentary?
The hardest part about making the documentary, probably one of the more difficult parts of the doc was just and this was, and let me be clear, this was handled heavily by our director, Josh Feldman, who did a fantastic job on making this story coherent. It's just the volume of information and discerning what should be in, what shouldn't be in, and then us as a team figuring out who should be in, not necessarily who shouldn't be in, but who we can get, who we can afford to get, to put in, because like every shooting day that you bring people in is expensive. So the more shooting days you add just adds a lot to the budget. And we shot this thing pretty lean. So it's like just the sheer volume of information to go through and tell this story, because what we found is that there's a significant gap in the marketplace of a premium piece of content that tells this story. There's YouTube videos that tell this story in a really dynamic, interesting way. And let me just be real clear on this. I love YouTube. I don't want to shit on YouTube. I think Hollywood should actually be paying a lot more attention to YouTube. And I think YouTube is starting to catch up in a lot of ways. But still, there's still a pretty big difference between even a really good YouTube video and like a theatrical level quality film. So there was no like high-end tier 1 premium piece of content that tells this carnivore story. And it's really not a carnivore diet story. It's really just humanity's relationship with meat and examining that and seeing that, as I said to you guys on at the top of this, like whether or not demonization of meat has led to more health or harm in the US. So yeah.
Yeah. What about setting up the marketing for this and thinking about that? What was your process?
So the process with this was really, as I mentioned, identifying our strengths. And our biggest strength with this film is twofold. One, there is a rabid, engaged base of people that are constantly talking about this topic online and following it and doing the diet, just eating more meat in general, like going paleo and just like not fearing meat as much. And one of the eye-opening moments was I looked at Google Trends. I looked at Answer the Public, which allows you to see search engine data on TikTok. And then Google Trends obviously allows you to see what's on Google and YouTube. And then I think Answer the Public, I also looked at it to see Meta, if I'm not mistaken. I saw Meta somewhere. I can't remember if it was on Answer the Public. But what you saw there is I looked at carnivore diet as a search term. I looked at paleo diet. I looked at vegan, and I looked at vegetarian, all weighed against each other over the last 12 months. And anyone that's used any tools like this, it's always 0 to 100. And vegan, vegetarian, and paleo were between 0 and 10 on that chart over the last 10 months or 12 months, with paleo being a higher than vegan and vegetarian. And then carnivore was in the 90s. Completely, like basically 10 times more interest of people searching and talking about it across all the major search engines, that also cover the main segments of the US. So like, millennials use a lot of Meta products. Gen Z uses a lot of YouTube. Everyone kind of uses Google. And then obviously Gen Z uses a lot of TikTok as well. And then Gen X also uses a lot of Meta products. So like there's a large sample of the audience, and every single one showed the same thing. So what we saw is that there's incredible interest in the topic. So it's like, okay, like we have to lean into that. Like there is, something here. And then our other really big strength was that we had these key opinion leaders within the space that had massive followings, like huge followings of people, like great engagement on all of their content. And we were like, if we can get all of these people into the documentary, I mean, and they're willing to promote it. I mean, we have a huge base of people that are going to know about the film just to begin with. It's almost like buying a book that has a bunch of readers and then turning it into a film. We're kind of hijacking a topic that has a bunch of followers and putting their favorite people in it. And that was kind of another huge advantage, that we were able to get basically all of the top tier voices within the space within our documentary. And then now we're leveraging their audiences to grow the awareness of the account. Not the account, of the brand of Animal. So that's kind of the way that I've gone about it. And the way that, like, high level strategically I'm looking at it is we want to engage as many people within the carnivore, honestly, not even as many, everyone within the carnivore community space, and then turn them into evangelists, message carriers for the film to the people that are connected in the outside, tangentially connected audiences. So your paleos, your ketos, health and wellness, fitness. And basically, because this story can be so dense and there's so many elements to it, as I alluded to before, being able to discern through all the information, we want this documentary to become the go-to resource for people to just send to someone when they're interested in the carnivore diet. So someone's like, I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm thinking about eating more meat. I heard this and that, blah, blah, blah. And as opposed to like trying to convince them with like all these scientific research papers and like all these other things that just make people's eyes gloss over. We just basically package that into a beautiful like Hollywood media product. And then just like, here you go, in 88 minutes, you can understand the entire story and be super entertained through incredible story structure, sound design, and pacing. And basically, if this becomes the go-to media product that people can just pass off to other people and just like, just watch this, just watch this, just watch this, it tells you everything you need to know, then that's a big win for us. So that's the marketing strategy for the film.
Yeah, and I'm sure that all the clips and different cuts of the quotes and all that stuff being shared on TikTok and everything, I'm sure you have a million amazing quotes for this thing that that'll get shared far and wide.
Yeah, lots of quotes, lots of spicy takes.
Kevin, wonderful having you on the show. For listeners, go to H20 Studios. You can check it out. Stay engaged there. Any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
Yeah, so just our website is live. It's animal.movie. Also follow us across all major social platforms so you can stay up to date on release date information. We're going to be dropping the trailer very soon. And you can find that at animal.film. So the word animal, DOC, film. And then it's the same on all major platforms. So go on there, join the community, start to ask questions. And if you're someone that's really interested in improving their health and feel like you've tried everything, give this a try. The goal of this is not to make you a carnivore. It's just to give you the full information. And then so you can make a decision from there. If you watch the doc and you still want to be a vegan, more power to you. But at least you've been told the whole story, and then you can make a full educated decision on your true option.
Amazing. Love it. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much.
Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.